Now, the Sussexes have copped it from comedian Colin Jost on Saturday Night Live. He's joked that one of the conditions of Trump's new trade deal with the UK is that Harry and Meghan have to go back.
There's no way President Trump would accept that deal. He's called Meghan Markle nasty and says he feels sorry for Prince Harry because his wife is a lot to deal with. Trump says he hates the way that Harry dealt with the late.
You know what happened last Saturday night? Colin Jost just delivered the roast of the century on Weekend Update. And honestly, the man didn't just throw shade, he threw the entire solar eclipse. The audience went absolutely wild when he called Meghan Markle a wannabe Diana with Wi-Fi. But wait until you hear what he said next that had even the camera crew losing it behind the scenes. So there's Colin sitting at that Weekend Update desk with his signature smirk, and he opens with this absolute nuclear bomb. Meghan Markle says she wants privacy. Right after signing another Netflix deal, starting another podcast, and launching a new jam brand. The man paused for effect, and you could literally hear a pin drop before he delivered the knockout punch.
You won't appreciate the way Harry continues to run his mouth against the monarchy today and say what you want about the Trump dynasty, but they are incredibly close and loyal to one another.
At this point, even Princess Diana's ghost is rolling her eyes, going, "Girl, calm down." The studio audience lost their collective minds. But here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. Colin wasn't even warmed up yet, and what he said about her healing journey had people questioning everything they thought they knew about modern royalty. Look, we've all seen Meghan's Instagram posts, right? Every single photo looks like it was shot by Annie Leibovitz's overachieving cousin. The woman can't even make toast without it looking like a Vogue cover shoot. Colin picked up on this and absolutely demolished it. She's not the people's princess, she's the PR princess. And honestly, the man had a point that cut deeper than a royal sword ceremony. But then Colin shifted gears and started talking about this fictional trade deal between Trump and Britain, and this is where things got absolutely savage. He suggested that Britain would reopen their markets to American companies, but only if America agreed to keep these two. The crowd was already in stitches.
Also announced a new trade deal with the UK that will reopen British markets for American companies. All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these two.
But Colin doubled down with a Trump impression that had security guards wiping tears from their eyes. "There's no way I'd accept that deal. I called her nasty. And frankly, Harry's got enough problems." Now, here's where it gets really spicy. Colin started comparing Meghan to Kate Middleton, and the contrast he painted was so brutal it should come with a warning label. Kate smiles, waves, raises 3 kids, and never says a word. Somehow she wins the world's heart. Colin said, his timing absolutely perfect. Meanwhile, Meghan gives a TED Talk every time she makes breakfast. The woman can't butter toast without a 3-part documentary about her journey to carbohydrate consciousness. The audience was howling. But Colin wasn't finished destroying her carefully crafted image.
Want it. They've realized that the person that they liked in the beginning, except for you, because you saw it immediately, didn't really.
My time with Meghan, I'm also like, let her promote her show. I'm here to talk about Reddit.
Yeah. It'd be a mystery for the ages. They're ridiculous. After that.
Going to Mars, why isn't he even involving himself with Twitter? It would be like if the Prince of England gave it all up just to marry an actor from Suits.
Here's what really got everyone talking, though. Colin called out the elephant in the room that nobody else had the guts to mention. You left the palace because it was toxic, understandable? But now you're living in a mansion in Montecito, sipping herbal tea, and filming 5 different angles of your healing journey. That's not trauma, that's content. The way he emphasized content had people literally falling out of their seats. Social media went absolutely mental type PR. Hashtag PR Princess started trending worldwide within minutes, and the memes were flowing like wine at a royal wedding.
Let's talk about Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry and Meghan have been brutally roasted on Saturday Night Live by Colin Jost during his Weekend Update sketch. Let's take a look.
President Trump also announced a new trade deal with the UK that will reopen British.
But Colin saved his most devastating observation for last. And this one probably had Meghan's PR team working overtime on damage control. Every episode of her shows ends the same way. Colin continued, putting on this breathy, theatrical voice that sounded suspiciously familiar. She looks into a mirror and whispers, "You are enough." Now pan the camera. He nailed her mannerisms so perfectly that even people who defended her were admitting it was spot on. The impression was so accurate, it was almost scary. like he'd been studying her media appearances with the dedication of a doctoral thesis.
Be funny, except there's no way Donald Trump would agree to it, right? He would be like, it's the one that we all have severe questions around. No, nobody wants these two. If you read the comment section, everybody in the States is like, please take them back to the UK. I don't think that they have any remotely.
The aftermath was pure chaos on social media. Twitter exploded with reactions, and surprisingly, a lot of Meghan's usual defenders were suspiciously quiet. Some were even admitting Colin had valid points, which tells you everything about how perfectly he'd captured the public's growing fatigue with her constant self-promotion disguised as vulnerability. But here's the thing that really shows Colin's comedic genius. He didn't just roast Meghan for the sake of being mean. He highlighted something that millions of people had been thinking, but were afraid to say out loud. There's something performative about her entire public persona that feels more calculated than genuine. When he said, she's always auditioning for a role nobody asked her to play, it wasn't just a punchline. It was cultural commentary wrapped in comedy gold.
Popular they truly have become.
Well, there are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired hours after he lost his appeal for taxpayer-funded UK security. And
the best part? Palace insiders reportedly found the whole thing predictable but satisfying. One source allegedly said, it was only a matter of time before someone said out loud what everyone was thinking. Even the royal family's silence spoke volumes. When you're getting roasted on international television and Buckingham, Palace doesn't even bother defending you. That's when you know you've become fair game. Colin's segment also sparked conversations about something Hollywood insiders call Meghan fatigue. Entertainment executives were reportedly watching the SNL segment closely, and some were concerned about how much the jokes resonated with audiences. When mainstream comedy starts landing this hard on a public figure, it usually signals that public opinion has shifted dramatically.
King Charles should strip Harry of his royal title. I mean, that doesn't really surprise me. What's your take?
I don't think that we'll see King Charles do this because he's not confrontational. I don't think that he likes the fact that he's been accused of racism towards his grandchildren in Omid Scobie's book. So I think he's going to...
The streaming consultant quoted in industry reports said it perfectly. When Saturday Night Live starts parodying someone this brutally and the audience loves it, that's when you know the brand is in serious trouble. Netflix and Spotify executives were probably having some very interesting conversations Monday morning. What made Colin's takedown so effective wasn't just the humor, it was the accuracy. Every joke felt rooted in observable reality rather than cheap shots. When he mocked her constantly curated appearances and rehearsed authenticity, he was pointing out contradictions that regular people had noticed but maybe couldn't articulate as cleverly. The comparison to Diana was particularly brutal because it highlighted everything wrong with Meghan's approach. Diana's appeal came from genuine vulnerability and authentic connection with people. Meghan feels manufactured, like every emotion has been focus grouped and every tear strategically scheduled. Colin's wannabe Diana with Wi-Fi wasn't just a joke, it was a cultural diagnosis.
Tiptoe around these two, but Prince William. You just wait until Prince William is king. I think he's going to put his handsome foot down and he is going to rock Meghan Markle's world. Meghan Markle is going to be humbled very quickly.
Well, I think Prince William will have plenty of support. We'll wait and see. But Kinsey,
here's what really shows how devastating Colin's segment was. Meghan reportedly felt blindsided and humiliated by the jokes. But here's the thing. If you put yourself in the public eye constantly, make your private life public content, and build your brand on being relatable while living in extreme luxury, you've basically written the comedy material yourself. Colin just had the guts to perform it. The feminist columnists and progressive commentators who usually rush to defend her, they were remarkably quiet this time. Some even admitted Colin wasn't wrong. When your usual allies start staying silent, that's not criticism. That's a cultural shift happening in real time. Colin's segment worked because it gave people permission to laugh at something they'd been taking too seriously for too long.
A friend of the royal family, Hugo Vickers, who revealed the late Queen was so fearful of Harry and Meghan that she wouldn't want to be alone with them. Let's just take a listen to that interview.
I do happen to know that the Queen always used to make sure that she had somebody with her whenever she saw those two, for the reasons that we've been talking about, that they might be taking photographs.
Meghan's constant narrative of struggle and growth and her healing journey had become exhausting for regular people dealing with actual problems. When someone making millions from Netflix deals talks about being oppressed, the cognitive dissonance becomes comedy gold. The timing was perfect too. This came right after reports about locals in the UK wanting Harry and Meghan stripped of their royal titles and polls showing their popularity at all-time lows. Colin didn't create the backlash, aches. He just gave it a voice that was funny instead of mean-spirited. What's fascinating is how this one comedy segment might have permanently changed Meghan's public image. She went from being a figure you had to take seriously, whether you liked her or not, to being someone it's socially acceptable to mock. That's a brand death spiral that's almost impossible to recover from. The industry whispers about Meghan fatigue suggests that even her business partners might be reconsidering their relationships. When your public persona becomes a punchline, it affects everything from endorsement deals to streaming contracts. Colin might have just cost her millions with 10 minutes of perfectly crafted comedy. But here's the most savage part of all this. Colin's impression of her was so accurate that it revealed something uncomfortable about modern celebrity culture. We've created an environment where performing vulnerability becomes more profitable than actually being vulnerable. Meghan just happened to be the perfect example of that phenomenon, and Colin held up the mirror with surgical precision. The royal family's reported satisfaction with the segment shows just how far relationships have deteriorated. When your own in-laws are reportedly enjoying watching you get roasted on international television, maybe it's time for some serious self-reflection. In the end, Colin Jost didn't just deliver jokes talks. He delivered a cultural moment that shifted public perception permanently. Meghan went from protected public figure to fair game for mainstream comedy, and once that line gets crossed, there's usually no going back. The wannabe Diana with Wi-Fi line will probably follow her forever, and honestly, after watching that segment, it's hard not to see the accuracy in every perfectly timed punchline. The best comedy comes from truth, and Colin's segment worked because it revealed truths that people recognized but hadn't heard articulated so perfectly. Sometimes it takes a comedian to say what everyone else is thinking, and Colin Jost just delivered a masterclass in how to turn cultural observation into comedy gold that changed the conversation forever.